house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes, the house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. I've been practicing this speech a little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good, I liked it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Big Easy Bets podcast. I'm your host, Logan. With me in the studio, Nick Von Brick.
What's up?
This is episode 226. This is going to be our SEC conference breakdown. We've done the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. Now we've got one more power conference to bring it home, and then we'll decide if we want to do maybe one episode to kind of combine all the group of five conferences. But just like before, we're going to go team by team. Depending on how the SEC standings were last year, we're going to go top to bottom. We're going to give you any updates, transfer portal news, anything that you need to know. This is how we're brushing up on everything that we need to know going into the 2025 season. And then when that's all said and done, we will give you our best bet for a futures bet for the SEC conference. Not much going on right now. The NBA Finals is in full swing. What LSU baseball is, that game last night, was that to go to Omaha?
Yep.
So you got college baseball, the College World Series coming up. The NBA Finals have been really just the NBA playoffs in general have been fantastic. I talked about it last episode, but I've been thoroughly impressed with the product of basketball compared to what we see in the regular season. So we got a 1-1 tied-up series going back to Indiana. Hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind, and we're pretty much going to dive right into it here. Let me pull up – let's see. Let me pull up the standings. I know, obviously, we're going to start it off with Texas. Just so I got it ready to go. All righty, let's get to it. So starting it off with Texas, head coach Steve Sarkisian obviously returns. 2024, they went 11-2, 7-1 in conference play. Their win total for 2025 sits at 9.5, heavily juiced to the over, minus 176 if you want to take the over, plus 142 if you're looking to go under. 2024 was the best Texas team we've seen in a very long time, led by a stellar defense, secondary specifically. The Longhorns made it to the college football playoff semifinal. Ultimately, it was the offense that let them down in two meetings against Georgia. They scored a total of 34 points. One game went to overtime, and then against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, they only scored 14 points. So on paper, Quinn Ewers had a solid season, but he was clearly what held the offense back. That plus a lack of weapons on the outside. Tight end Gunnar Helm led the team in receptions. Matthew Golden stepped up as the go-to guy down the stretch. But Isaiah Bond never really turned into what they were hoping he could be. But with that being said, it is a new era in Austin, Texas. It's been a long wait, but Arch Manning's going to make his highly anticipated debut as the starting quarterback. Ewers is left for the NFL. He went in the 6th round. Jaden Blue, the more productive of the two running backs, also left for the NFL. Arch is going to be without last season's top 3 receiving targets, Matthew Bond, Gunnar Helm, and Isaiah Bond. Quintravion Wisner does return after leading the team in rushing with 1,064 yards. Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore Jr. return at wide receiver. Moore found the end zone 7 times on only 39 receptions. Trevor Gooseby is going to take over for left tackle after Kelvin Banks went first round to the New Orleans Saints, one of the best offensive linemen in the country. Outside of that, though, they're going to have a lot of new faces on that offensive line. So you pair that with a new quarterback. So we'll see how long it takes them to start to gel. But so Gooseby stepped in because Banks had injury problems. So he's got experience. I think he went up against Georgia with some premier pass rushers, and then he had other experience past that, and I wouldn't say he failed the test by any means. Defensively, you lose 2 fantastic players in the secondary, Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron, both to the NFL. But the defense should be just fine. Last year's leading tackler, Anthony Hill Jr., he had 113 tackles. He's back. And then stud edge rusher Colin Simmons had 9 sacks last year. He says he's trying to go for the record to break the single-season sack record. He is goddamn good. So I wouldn't be shocked, I guess. But the question for me boils down to, do you believe in Arch? We haven't really seen it yet. We saw him play UL Monroe. We saw him come in certain spots, and he can obviously run the ball. He can throw a deep ball, but can he process? Can he read the defense and can he run the offense? I mean, we're going to find out pretty quick. They start the season at Ohio State. Then you get a couple down weeks, San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. Then you got to go on the road to Florida. You play Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout. You got to go to Kentucky, to Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. Then you're on the road against Georgia. You play Arkansas and A&M to close out the season. So what are your thoughts on Texas? They've been trending up and up each year. So when they lost to Washington, they were in the college football playoff the last 2 years, right?
Yep.
So I guess technically they got to the same spot because it was the semifinals the year before. But they didn't win a game. So they got to it against Washington and lost. Then they got to it, they won, and then subsequently lost to Ohio State. So in my opinion, they've kind of proven they've taken a step each year. They've improved the last couple years. Do you see them taking another step forward, which would have to be, I guess, getting to the national championship, if not winning it? Or do you see regression? It's hard to say, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you look at the schedule. It's not easy because it's in the SEC, but I mean you compare it to some of the other SEC schools' schedules, and then you look at it and you go, okay, it's not the toughest because obviously having to play Ohio State's a big game for the first game of the year, but it's like we've been talking about with these non-conference games. They mean something, but then again,
Not
in
really.
the grand scheme of things, they don't when it comes to winning the conference, which is the only guarantee to get into the playoff anyway. So, yeah, I think the big question here is how do they replace the receivers, especially the tight end, Gunnar Helm, and then Matthew Golden, who really turned it on and at the end of the year and in the playoff. I'm not sure how well they did that. And then, yeah, the big question is Arch. How good is Arch Manning? It's like you look at his stats from last year, 939 passing yards, nearly 68% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, and 4 rushing touchdowns. But a majority of his stats came against UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, and Mississippi State. So not getting a bunch of statistics against the best teams, which obviously Ewers was the starting quarterback. But there's a lot of hype. The big thing that separates him from the other Mannings is his ability to run. It's very special because he can literally take it 70 yards. And we've seen him do it.
Yeah.
I kind of expect him to struggle to start, especially to start. So I don't really know.
It's hard to say, though. So, yeah, like, I agree, but does that mean you have them losing Ohio State? Because it's like I could see their quarterback who hasn't played for shit struggling as well. So it's like from a handicap in the game standpoint, it's like when you say he's struggling, do you think they start the season 0-1?
Yeah, that's the thing is because it's not like it's going to all be on his shoulders because like last year, this year's Texas's defense is going to be one of the best of the nation again.
Yeah.
So it won't all be on him, and I'm sure Ohio State's defense will be pretty good as well. So kind of looking towards that game, it's like maybe it's comes down to which quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes and who wins.
Yeah, I mean, it was put on a platter for him whenever they played Georgia and they were getting killed and they benched Arch and they benched Quinn Ewers, they put Arch Manning in. So the story like was right there where it's like, oh shit, he could come in and if he fucking leads a score and drive right here, Quinn Ewers might never get his fucking job back. And then he couldn't do shit either. So it was like, okay, pull the plug on that. They pulled him out pretty quick. They were like, get back out there to Ewers. So we haven't seen him have success against top talent yet. So I'm not saying he won't. I'm sure he probably will. But, yeah, it may be a bit of a slow start. It may be some growing pains. But that's what we're going to find out. But, yeah, expect another really good Texas defense, which that was the difference maker for their success the last couple years. Anytime, at least in recent history, that we've seen Texas looked like they had Ellinger and they had their defenses were fucking terrible. So that's the difference now is they've got top-notch defenses. So So we'll see what Texas can do. Next in line, you got Georgia. Again, obvious head coach Kirby Smart. 2024, they win 11-2, 6-2 in conference play. Their over/under for 2025 sits at 9.5. Juice to the over, -138, +112 if you like the under. Last season, in my opinion, was a bit of a disappointment for the Bulldogs, seeing how each season has turned into basically championship or bust. They killed Clemson out the gates, sorry, let me see. I can never read my damn handwriting. Out the gates, they killed Clemson. But then a few weeks later, we saw Bama jump out to them to a 3-score lead in the blink of an eye. To their credit, they battled back in that game. It was really a first quarter just blitzing from Alabama, and then Georgia did battle back. But Carson Beck was just not a good enough quarterback. It's like we told you going into the season. I had big-time question marks. He had proven nothing to me to deserve the praise that he was getting and the expectations that were put on him. He transferred to Miami. Gunnar Stockton's going to start. Outside of one drive against Texas in the SEC Championship, Stockton didn't do much of anything to wow you. So, except he can hold on to a football when he gets knocked unconscious by Notre Dame. Or no, that was Texas again. That was Texas when he's running towards the goal line. That SEC Championship was the worst display. It was just the worst bad luck that I've probably ever had. They return their leading rusher, Nate Frazier, but they do lose their top 2 wide receivers, Arian Smith and Dominic Lovett, to the NFL. Dylan Bell returns, and he seems to be, down the stretch, he seemed to be kind of the favorite target. They just felt like they were throwing it to him every time. The reason, they didn't have weapons on the outside. Nobody had lived up to expectations for Georgia. They didn't have a guy that they could really rely on. They didn't have that lad McConkey that they could go to move the chains. They did, though, go out and get one of the more dynamic playmakers in America in Zachariah Branch from USC. Defensively, you lose a lot. You lose Malachi Starks, and then you've got your top 5 sack leaders, including Walker and Mikael Williams. But it's Georgia. You'd expect that they're going to reload the defense like they have year after year after year. They're going to have a guy coming off the edge that we don't know his name yet, and he's going to go in the top half of the first round. So, schedule-wise, they started off against Marshall. Then they play Austin Peay. Then you got to go on the road against Tennessee, a Nico-less Tennessee. Then you play Alabama and Kentucky both at home. You go on the road to Auburn. Then you play Ole Miss at home. It says it's a neutral for Florida. I'm not sure where it's being played. Then you got at Mississippi State, and then you finish out your season with 3 straight home games: Texas, Charlotte, Georgia Tech, which actually Georgia Tech might also be a neutral. What are your thoughts with Georgia? Another question mark at quarterback. You don't know. Stockton at least has experience, and he's got big-time experience or big game experience from having to come in and step in place of Carson Beck. What are your expectations for the Bulldogs going into 25?
Yeah, looking at the schedule, I only have 4 true road games. The neutral against Florida is in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite schedule from last year where Georgia really had to go on the road a lot and play some of the better teams like Ole Miss and Alabama and Texas all on the road last year. This year it's going to be all at home. So you mentioned it. They lost some key players, especially on defense, to the draft. But it's like Georgia, better than anyone else, has been recruiting 4 and 5 stars. So that's who's replacing those guys. 4 and 5 stars. The next wave of first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
The big question's quarterback. Like a lot of these teams, it's kind of uncertain on what's going to happen here. Gunnar Stockton's going to get the start. I mean, I'm not totally even sure. Did they get any 5-star freshmen? I don't know.
At quarterback?
Yeah, because this guy.
They have Hezekiah Millender. I would imagine he's a 5-star, but he's a true freshman. And then he's the 3rd string, though. You've got Ryan Puglisi.
Yeah.
He's a redshirt freshman. He hasn't played at all.
Yeah, you touched on it. The wide receiver position last year was a big cause for concern. They never found a way to replace Bowers and McConkey from the season before. Getting Zach Branch and Noah Thomas from A&M is 2 big gets. I think it'll probably be the best wide receiver room we've seen at Georgia in quite some time. But
yeah, I think Dylan Bell's a good wide receiver.
Yeah,
and
he struggled with some drops.
Yeah, but it also felt like the ball was going his way every goddamn time. So if he could, he's not a number 1, but he could be a solid number 2 or a great number 3. You know?
Yeah. So it's going to come down to quarterback for Georgia. I'm sure on defense they'll be fairly good again, and also at running back they got that guy.
Josh McCray, from Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they poached their best running back. That's a big get, too. That's a big body guy. He's 235 pounds. That's just a quality running back in general, but a great goal line back. He averaged over 5 yards a carry for Illinois. So that's a big get, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Gunnar Stockton because Nate Frazier's a very good running back as well. You're going to have a good running back room. You went out and got a superstar at wide receiver because, in my opinion, that's what Zach Branch is. You're going to be able to put the ball in his hands. You're going to be able to make easy throws and not have Stockton have to think, not really have to read much of anything. Easy throws, get the ball into Zach Branch's hands, and let him just go to work. So I would expect that this is going to be a much better Georgia offense. And it's like the offense wasn't terrible. Carson Beck just wasn't good enough to win you those big games. Because if you remember and you go back into those games, he wasn't doing much of anything. Even when they were beating up on Texas, Carson Beck wasn't really lighting it up. So, and then in the game where he hurt his elbow, same thing. He wasn't doing anything. That was the second Texas game. So that's the whole thing with Gunnar Stockton. He didn't do really, other than that first drive out of the second half to start the second half against Texas in the SEC championship, I don't really remember much of a single fucking thing that he did that was impressive. Like I said, other than running and not fumbling when he got smoked at the goal line, and if he would have fumbled, I would have won my bet. But do you know of anything? Like, did he do anything that leads you to believe that he could be a serious quarterback in the SEC conference?
No. I mean, what did he do against Notre Dame?
Not much. I can pull it up.
Not a terrible game, but
well, they only scored 10.
Yeah, he threw 1 touchdown, 234 passing yards.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's a great defense and a great secondary, but clearly he was able to move the ball until the field got condensed and they weren't able to do much. So they were 2 of 12 on third down, 0 of 3 on fourth down. Yeah, I mean, those numbers aren't bad on paper, but like I said, there was nothing that stuck out to me that I remembered of okay, this is a guy that can do something here. So, and I'm not saying he won't. We just got to see it. I haven't seen it yet, and so there's question marks at a lot of different schools at the quarterback position. So. All right, we'll keep it moving. So third in the standings is not going to be third in the standings this year, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. Josh Heupel's the head coach. Last year they went 10-2, 6-2 in conference play. Going into 2025, I got this about a week to 10 days ago, so this could be a little different, but I had it at 8.5. Slightly juiced to the over, -134, +110 if you want the under.
Yeah, I got it -115 to the over.
Okay.
Today.
Okay. 2024, we saw a college football playoff berth for Tennessee, but the story of the season was the lack of production from Nico Imaliava, which was on full display, and their 42-17 loss to Ohio State that ended their season. Then we all know what happened in the offseason. Nico's now at UCLA, whose former quarterback Joey Aguilar, they did a swap. Aguilar took Nico's spot at Tennessee. Aguilar had an okay season at App State. His completion percentage took a steep decline from the 63.7% in 2023 all the way down to 55.9% in 2024. The Vols lose their best offensive player, running back Dylan Sampson. He had nearly 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. They also lost the top 3 wide receivers from last year. Defensively, Tennessee returns a good bit of production. Obviously, James Pierce is not in that group. He's off to the NFL. He had 7.5 sacks. He was very productive coming off the edge. But 5 of the top 6 tacklers do return, and there's going to be some familiarity in the secondary. It was unfortunate how things played out for Tennessee, for the Volunteers, but you do have to respect the fact that they stood their ground, didn't pay Nico money that he wasn't worth. The defense should be really good again. How is Aguilar going to do in an SEC environment remains to be seen. I don't have the highest of hopes. I do think Josh Heupel's a good coach. I think he's a very good offensive mind, and you've got a good defense with a lot of returning production. They start the season against Syracuse, then they play Eastern Tennessee State, but then you got to play Georgia. Then you got UAB at Mississippi State versus Arkansas, at Alabama, at Kentucky versus Oklahoma, New Mexico State, at Florida, and you close your season out against Vanderbilt. What are your thoughts on Tennessee? How do you see their season going?
Yeah, I like Aguilar. I think, watching him the past 2 years, I wonder if at times he was forced to try to do too much at App State. App State's defense hasn't been good, so a lot of times App State will find themselves playing from behind, and then you have a quarterback who's trying to make big plays a lot of the time. Whereas when you go to Tennessee now, obviously last year Tennessee, the strength of their team was their defense, and then coupled with their running game, obviously they lost their best running back. It's like, how do they replace him now is the biggest question, because I don't know how much of a drop back Joey Aguilar is from Ayamalava.
Yeah, I mean, from last year's Nico, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he's much of a drop back at all, because Nico held him back. He couldn't hit a deep ball. The thing that kept that offense moving was Dylan Sampson. So Peyton Lewis is taking his spot at running back. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. Only got 64 carries, had 340 yards, and then only 3 touchdowns. But obviously Sampson was the bell cow. They were giving him the ball the majority of the time. I don't think it's a bad replacement. And then you have talent at enough talent at the wide receiver position that if Aguilar can come step into SEC play and not just completely feel like a fish out of water, then this Tennessee team could be competitive. It's a very tough place to play, tough environment. But I think you got a good coach at the helm, and you're going to have a good defense. So, and it would kind of be, it's like almost like they deserve it. They deserve after what happened, they deserve a solid or a better than expected season,
Yeah. Looking further into their running back room, I mean, the second string guy has a good amount of reps. I think 70 carries from last year, averaged 6.1 yards per carry. And then they got Star Thomas from Duke, who was Duke's primary running back.
That's a quality back too.
So you kind of look at Tennessee's running back room as went from a bell cow to probably more of a rotation now. And then I don't know. I think if Aguilar, man, if he can, I think Heupel will only help him.
Yeah.
And he can make plays with his legs as well. He has a pretty strong arm. Tennessee's wide receiver room, I don't know. But yeah, the defense, I think the defense probably takes a little bit of a step back, but still probably is what keeps them competitive in games in the SEC.
Yeah. All righty, let's see. All right, next in line, you got Alabama. Head coach Kalen DeBoer. Their 2025 win total sits at 9.5, plus 102 to the over, minus 122 to the under. 2024 got off to a good start for Alabama. You're 4-0. You just beat Georgia. Milroe is, at the time, the Heisman favorite. And then they lost 2 of their next 3, and Milroe threw 300-plus yards, only threw 300-plus yards one time to end the season. Capped the year off with an embarrassing loss to Michigan, Michigan offensively could not throw the ball the entire year, could not complete a forward pass. It rained in that bowl game, I remember, because we had an incredible bowl season. But one of the very few losses that we had, like a generational bowl season, one of the few losses we had was Alabama. It rained in the first quarter, and Jalen Milroe just couldn't fucking hold on to the football. Couldn't hold on to it. Kept dropping it. Michigan, I think, had like 21 points on the board, and I don't even know if they had to fucking complete like a first down. It was disgusting. It really was terrible. So DeBoer did not live up to the Alabama expectations, and then you finish the season off in a very bad way. So it was an embarrassing loss. The Tide are set for the 2025 season with Ty Simpson expected to be the quarterback. But then you've got Mack, a guy who followed DeBoer over from Washington. Then you have a true freshman in there as well. As far as I can tell, it sounds like Ty Simpson is going to be the day one starter. Will he be the starter for the entire season? That remains to be seen. Jam Miller returns at running back, 4.6 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns. Star wide receiver Ryan Williams is obviously back for his sophomore season, 48 catches, 865 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Isaiah Horton comes in from Miami to help out the wide receiver room. Alabama does lose 2 of their top 3 tacklers, star linebacker Jahad Campbell. He had 119 tackles and 5 sacks. And then they also lose safety Malachi Moore in the secondary. The front 7 should be just fine, but the secondary I have questions about. The corners Zabian Brown and Damani Jackson both graded out very poorly in 2024 per Pro Football Focus. Question marks at quarterback. The very much trending topic for this going into this season is Ty Simpson the guy. It gives me Tyler Buckner vibes. We haven't seen anything from him that leads you to believe that he's going to light it up. Same thing. You open the season against Florida State. Then you got to go play UL Monroe, Wisconsin, but then you got to go on the road to Georgia. You play Vanderbilt, on the road against Mizzou, Tennessee at home, on the road against South Carolina. Then you play LSU, Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois all at home, and you close out your season with the Iron Bowl on the road in Jordan-Hare Stadium against Auburn. What are your thoughts on Alabama? And do you see a scenario where Kalen DeBoer is on the hot seat by season's end?
I don't know. I mean, I thought last year he probably, at least my expectations, he probably overperformed.
Really?
Yeah, I mean 9-3. I would have expected them to be far worse than that, especially with Milroe at quarterback. But I mean they got the big win against Georgia.
Yeah, but so you got to put yourself back in that time though, where they controlled their destiny. They very much could have got into the college football playoff, and nearly still did. Probably would have if Clemson didn't beat, what was it, SMU in the ACC championship, right? They lost 24-3 to a fucking terrible Oklahoma team.
Yeah,
like that was okay, the sky is falling, and people are now calling for DeBoer's head. That was, and they were talking about the way he handled it post game, and like. Him blown up on the sidelines. I was reading everything about it where they were like, felt like he was in over his head and questioning if he's the guy. But that loss was so fucking bad because that Oklahoma team was terrible. I remember I had the under in this game. And the only reason it remotely came into question was because Milroe was throwing fucking interceptions, nearly throwing pick sixes.
Yeah, but I think that bowl game was embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
But
let me pull it up just so everybody can get a.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even been considering Alabama for the playoff last year. A 9-3 Alabama team. I mean,
yeah.
Ole Miss was 9-3 and clearly a better team than Alabama.
Yeah, so Michigan won the bowl game, 19-13. They scored 16 points in the first quarter. They only had 190 total yards of offense. I'm just going to go to the play-by-play just so we can fully understand this. Alabama starts it off with a turnover on downs at the Michigan 45. Michigan then goes 17 yards and they kick a field goal. The first play of the next drive, Jalen Milroe fumbles, recovered by Michigan. 4 plays, 7 yards, another field goal. They're up 6-0. The second play of the next drive, Jalen Milroe throws an interception because the ball slipped out of his hands as he was trying to throw it. 3 plays, 16 yards, touchdown for Michigan. They're up 13-0. They've got a grand total of 40 yards of offense and 13 points. The very next play for Alabama is a fumble by Jalen Milroe, a strip sack But he just dropped the fucking ball again. 4 plays, 3 yards, field goal. 16-0. And then they proceeded to go punt. Alabama did. And then they get a touchdown. But in a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plays, if you want to count the turnover on downs on the 4th down. But you turned it over 3 times in 4 plays. That was and it was because it rained. It just rained. And it was like that sunny rain. It was sunshine still. It was just like a little shower. And he lost his mind. This was a terrible Michigan team.
Yeah.
So, that was – so in a span of – you lost 2 out of your last 3 games, and they were 2 embarrassing losses. So, I guess my question is, do you see a scenario? Jackson Arnold was 9 of 11, 68 yards, and they beat him 24-3.
Yeah, I just don't know what you expect. You lose Saban, what do you expect to be? Continue to be the best? Like, you fire this guy, but the next guy probably won't.
No, I get that, but you had largely the same personnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they lost some people, don't get me wrong. You lost Caleb Downs, which was not arguably the biggest loss, at least on the defensive side of the ball that you could have. But it's like Milroe was there for Saban's last year. He was still there with the board. It's not like he jumped ship. And then you have Ryan Williams, who looked like a world beater for the majority of that season, at least to start. So it's like the defensive philosophy. But it's not even that. The defense was pretty goddamn good. So I don't know. I don't know. But I wouldn't be shocked if Ty Simpson's not that great. And then knowing that his guy is Mack, who came along with him from Washington, we could see him be starting by week 3, 4, or 5 in that range, because I think if they get off to a bad start, which it's going to be kind of hard to do, but let's put it this way, by Georgia. If they lose to Georgia, I could see a quarterback change because the seat may get a little warm. Maybe not hot, but it'll get a little warm. So, but what are your expectations for them in the season? Anything substantial? Do you think they're a contender for the college football playoff?
I think it's certainly possible just looking at the schedule. I mean, really, when you break it down, Georgia is their toughest game, and then LSU is probably their next toughest game.
On the road against South Carolina is not a cakewalk. They honestly probably should have lost to – actually, not probably. They should have lost to South Carolina last year.
They lost to Vanderbilt last year.
Yeah.
So they have to play them again. If they lose then if they lose again, then I would say DeBoer's probably on the hot seat because –
Well, you're probably coming off a loss against Georgia.
Yeah.
So then, if you follow that up with a loss to Vandy. But, yeah, I mean, the win total sits at 9.5, so it's very possible that it's another 10-win season for Bama. And you can go 10-2 in the SEC and still find yourself in the SEC championship, and then you control your own destiny to get into the college football playoffs.
Yeah, or they could be 10-2 and really just not even that good.
Yeah.
Just looking at the schedule,
yeah, you got a Florida State team,
you're
which
probably going to need elite quarterback play to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
Depending on how Georgia's quarterback
unless Stockton's not good. There's a lot of
But I think to beat
LSU,
you're going to need elite quarterback play.
Yeah.
Like 4 rushing touchdowns like Milroe does to us every time.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God that's gone.
He sucks against everybody else, but
no, I know.
not against LSU.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God that's gone. All right, speaking of LSU, let's get to LSU. Head coach Brian Kelly. We sat here on this show. I said within 3 years, Brian Kelly's going to bring a national championship to Baton Rouge. Well, we're going on year 4, and I've called for him to be fired the last 2 years. But this is a new day. This is a new day, and we're going to get into it. The win total sits at 8.5, juice to the over, -128. Like I just said, we enter year 4 of the Brian Kelly era. I think it's safe to say it is now or never. The big news of the early part of 2025 was that Bryce Underwood was not going to come to LSU because he got poached by Michigan in his home state because they paid him a ridiculous amount of money that we'll never know the exact amount. But long story short, that was a blessing in disguise because then we all were like, well, we know you've got money now, so you got to spend it. And you gotta go get us fucking good players. So we can't have one great player. Go get us a bunch of good players. And in my opinion, I think they did better than that. Brian Kelly even put his money where his mouth is. He put up $1 million of his own money into the NIL collective. They started walking around like with a goddamn cup at church, fucking asking for loose change from all the civilians. And everybody kind of did their part, and we raised a good bit of money. We'll talk about who we lost first. Well, number one, Will Campbell, starting left tackle. He was a top 5 pick to the Patriots. You also lost your right tackle, Emory Jones. You lose 3 of your top 4 receiving threats. Kyron Lacey, rest in peace. Mason Taylor is gone, and then C.J. Daniels is also gone. Defensively, the biggest loss, in my opinion, is Braden Swinson, 8.5 sacks. And then second leading tackler, Greg Penn, also cornerback Zy Alexander, is now with the Seahawks. Both Whit Weeks, 120 tackles, and Harold Perkins are both rehabbing serious injuries. I think Perkins is the ACL. Whit Weeks, we obviously saw him break his leg or his ankle, whichever one, in the bowl game against Baylor. It looks like Whit Weeks is going to be good to go come start of the season. Harold Perkins, from what I'm hearing, it may be they're going to ease him back in to start the season, from what it sounds like. And then probably around, realistically, maybe Ole Miss, South Carolina, I would expect for him to be full speed. So while we're talking about what we lost, we've got a classic case of addition by subtraction, and that's the safeties, Sage Ryan and Major Burns. Sage Ryan said he's seeing red, and he's ready to go play LSU. It's like, you're going to be seeing purple and gold, you stupid fucking moron, as Byron Brown's fucking, not Byron Brown, God damn it, the receiver from Kentucky.
Barry Brown.
Byron Brown's the South Florida quarterback. As Barry and Brown streaking down the sideline. Sage Ryan stinks, Major Burns stinks. They're both gone, and we're better for it. Now you've got the additions. On the offensive line, you go get Braylon Moore out of Virginia Tech. Probably going to be your center. Probably going to move Chester to guard. You also got Josh Thompson from Northwestern. Running back Harlem Berry, true freshman, number 1 running back in the class, is coming in. Wide receiver, you go get Barry and Brown, Nick Anderson, and Destin Hill from Florida State. Tight end Bauer Sharp comes from Oklahoma. Defensively, you go and get Jack Pyburn from Florida. An edge guy. He was their 3rd leading tackler last year. You also went and got Patrick Payton from Florida State, who had a ton of hype going into last season. No one on that Florida State team lived up to expectations. I have high hopes for Patrick Payton. I think he can be a very good pass rusher still, and I understand he didn't live up to the expectations, but we don't need him to be necessarily a double-digit sack guy, but he has the potential to be. You also went and got Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech as well in the secondary. And then late in the portal window, you went and got defensive tackle Bernard Gooden from UAB, I think it was. And then in the 11th hour, we go and secure safety A.J. Halsey, the top-rated safety in the portal from Houston. It is now or never for this LSU team. And I've placed a sizable futures bet on LSU. I think it was 20-1. I'll have to double-check. I'm almost certain it was 20-1. The biggest thing for me is obviously Nussmeier has to play better. Nussmeier's potential, that's not the biggest thing, but that's underneath. He has to play better. He has all the potential in the world. The biggest thing is we have to be able to run the football because we were fucking terrible at running the football. I think with the moves that we made on defense too, Gilbert in the secondary is not going to have to cover people downfield. He's going to be able to play more around the line of scrimmage and I think play to his strengths more. You've got those wide receiver additions, Barry and Brown, Nick Anderson, and then Destin Hill. You're looking at a scenario where your top receiving threat last year, obviously I guess was Kyron Lacey, but we kept waiting for Chris Hilton to come back from from injury. And then when he got back, he had the very notable growing pains or knocking the rust off, and him and Brian Kelly going at it on the sidelines. But what he did in the bowl game against Baylor was you saw what he's capable of doing. And if he's going to be your number 3 or number 4 guy, then we're going to be in very good shape. And Nussmeier's going to win the Heisman Trophy, and Nussmeier's going to be the number 1 overall pick because Berrien Brown's going to be a stud. Nick Anderson, also coming back from injury. He'd been battling injury all last year with Oklahoma, but he had a great freshman year. It's an electric wide receiver room. You've got Caden Durham back at running back, Harlem Berry, and then Jackson as well. I think you have a good running back room. I scratch my head as to why it was so difficult for us to run the ball, but there were times where we had 24 yards on 23 carries. I think that you're going to have to be able to run the ball better, almost just by default from how poorly we ran it last year. You may not have as much star power on that offensive line in terms of name value with Will Campbell and Emory Jones coming into the season. They're the best tackle combo and this and that, both NFL guys. I mean, do you agree it's now or never in the Brian Kelly era?
Yeah, this is the best team he's had since he's gotten to LSU, without a doubt. We talk about the transfers. I mean, that's going to be the difference here. Is last year, let's be honest, the receivers just weren't that good.
No.
At LSU, when we've been really good teams, we've had first-round draft pick wide receivers last year. Nobody played like a first-round draft pick. So this year you get Nick Anderson and Berrien Brown and Aaron Anderson with another year of experience.
Yeah, that was Nussmeier's favorite target.
I love Aaron Anderson. I thought he was the best receiver last year. I'm glad he's back. You talk about the offensive line, where LSU did a really good job in the transfer portal and in the recruiting classes, recruiting interior offensive linemen. You mentioned the guy from Virginia Tech and the other guy from Northwestern, and then the true freshman coming in, an interior offensive lineman, the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the recruiting class, a 5-star, Carius Kern. We flipped him from Florida State. So I think what that kind of tells me is the direction LSU is heading in. You lost the 2 tackles, but you do a really good job recruiting interior offensive linemen. I think that kind of tells you that LSU's going to try to run the ball a little bit more this year.
Yeah, take a little bit of pressure off of Nussmeier's shoulders. He had too many games where he had 50-plus pass attempts. Now you can lean on your run. And look, we were at the spring game, and there's a noticeable difference when Harlem Berry got his hands on the ball, in my opinion at least. There's a noticeable difference in burst, and we already know Caden Durham's a stud. But the offensive line that couldn't run block to save their goddamn life, and he was making plays. The problem was he had to make people miss 2 yards in the backfield. So if you can flip that and you give him 2-3 yards before contact, he's going to have an incredible year. And then it was clear that it's Caleb Jackson, right? A big-time letdown of a season.
Yep.
He had a lot of hype coming in. People were hyping him up and about the weight room and how much time he's putting in. It was a letdown of a season for him, in my opinion. So, and I don't even think that's debatable. The big thing for me is the last couple years, the defense has been fucking terrible. Terrible. With goddamn Sage Ryan and Major Burns back there. If I had to watch another season of Major Burns play football, fucking put me out of my misery, please. It's going to be a lot different now. I really do believe. I think we're going to have a very, very good defense. And if Harold Perkins can come back, and I've given up hope that we'll ever be able to see Harold Perkins do what he did that one year. And they came back next year and completely played him in a different role. And in my opinion, it didn't make sense. But if Harold Perkins can just in spots, if we can plug and play him against South Carolina and let him go fucking hawk down Lenore Sellers as he's trying to run, and use him the way we're supposed to use him, Whit Weeks is incredible. Whit Weeks had 120 tackles. That probably led the SEC. I could be wrong on that. It sounds like he's doing very well in his recovery. But you got Pyburn with a lot of hype there. there's a lot to be excited about on the defensive side of the ball. Stamps coming back at corner. I think he's a good corner. I think he's going to have a good year. I'm obviously biased, and I've got money on him, but I didn't have money on him last year. I didn't have money on him the year before. I think I did have money on Garrett Nussmeier to be the number 1 overall pick. That's going to roll on over to the next season. That's another thing, too, what it comes down to, because the door is open. That's what this boils down to. The door is open. You have quarterback question marks at Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. We all assume that the questions are going to be quickly answered at Texas. But Georgia and Alabama, there's a chance that it doesn't pan out that way. You've got a young quarterback at A&M, a young quarterback at Florida. You've got goddamn Jackson Arnold at Auburn. The door is wide open for LSU. The win total's at 8.5 because the SEC is very tough. It's the toughest conference in football. You open the season against Clemson, probably a top 5 team. Not even probably. They are a top 5 team. We're doing what we love to do with Brian Kelly for some reason, is play the best teams fucking the first week, and we've lost every single time. But maybe this is the time that we fucking get them, and we get a win under our belt to start the season. But it is now or never for this LSU team. It's the best roster in the Brian Kelly era. And Nussmeier's got another year of experience under his belt with all the talent in the world and a ton of weapons on the outside, in my opinion. If they can all get back healthy, which it sounds like they will, and you've got – I didn't even mention Trey'Dez Green. Go look at what Trey'Dez Green did against Baylor in the bowl game. This guy's a freak. In the red zone, he's a freak. He played on the basketball team, too. Go watch some of those fucking highlights. This guy's a problem. You sprinkle him into the mix. They have weapons on weapons on weapons. If the offensive line can give Nussmeier time, we're going to put points up on the board, and I think the defense is going to be vastly improved. Like I said, I bet LSU 20-1 to win the national championship, and it's a sizable futures bet. I'm going down with the ship. If this is it, I'm not going to call for Brian Kelly's firing one time. Not one time. He put his money where his mouth is. I can respect it. It's now or never. What is your honest opinion on how the season's going to go? Non-biased. If you had to make a prediction right now, what do you say? How does the season end for LSU?
Yeah, obviously we know this team better than any other team because it's, the team we grew up rooting for. It's the team we watched the closest, right?
It's your alma mater. It would have been mine if I was smarter.
2023, you have one of the best offenses ever with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, and then you couple it with the worst defense in LSU history. Then last year, okay, the offense isn't as good. You don't have 2 first-round receivers. You have Nussmeier. It's his first year starting. He threw for 4,000 yards in 13 games. So, I don't know. I think I look at this offense and the additions at wide receiver and then the tight end, Bauer Sharp, who's going to kind of, play a big role in that running game as well. To me, there's no reason that this offense shouldn't be better than last year. I think last year we finished 34th in yards per play. I kind of see the offense getting back into, the top 20 area, if not the top 10 area in yards per play.
I think it'll be more balanced.
Yeah.
It's got to be more balanced, and that's going to make life much easier for Nussmeier. So it's like, yeah,
like when you're looking at these teams, who is projected to have a better offense than LSU?
Of what, when you say
any team in the nation? Like you go look back last year, who led the nation in yards per play? Miami.
Yeah.
Ohio
State's offense is probably going to be pretty good just because I could throw to Jeremiah Smith.
Ohio State was 4th in yards per play.
Yeah. But they got
But all these teams, new quarterback at Miami, new quarterback at Ole Miss, new quarterback at Ohio State.
Yep.
New quarterback at Louisville who finished 6th.
Yep.
All these teams have new quarterback. The only team in the top 10 that doesn't have a new quarterback is Penn State, which that's crazy to think Penn State was top 10 in yards per play last year.
That is crazy because they went and fucking didn't complete a pass to the wide receiver in the goddamn semifinal. Look, having that familiarity at the what word am I looking for here? The experience at the quarterback position that Nussmeier is now going to have is a leg up on everybody else. Like, okay, great, Drew Aller's back. He fucking can't throw. Or he can't throw well to his team. Go look at Nussmeier's odds to win the Heisman Trophy. Go look at Nussmeier's odds to be the number 1 overall pick.
Let's be honest. If Nussmeier would have declared for the draft, I think people would have been crazy to take Jackson Dart over Nussmeier.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going to be honest, too. We're about to get to Ole Miss here. I'll save it once we get to
But LSU, offense, we talked about it. The big thing here is going to be the defense.
Yeah.
This will be the best defense LSU's had in years.
Yeah, if you can just...
Definitely since 2019, I think they could possibly be better than 2019. We saw it in the spring.
So this is the transfer portal era where you saw it with Florida State, where they brought them in like paid mercenaries. You had Keon Coleman, big-time name, and they hit that 1 year. And then the very next year they tried to do it again and reload, getting Roydell Williams from Alabama and Malik Benson at wide receiver and all these people on the defensive side of the ball, and it didn't work. So that's the roll of the dice in the transfer portal era, where you could have basically a new look offense or defense or both at the snap of a finger. So we can see a lot of swings, Florida State included. Like Florida State was god awful last year. Florida State could flip the script and be good this year and have a drastically different season. So I think you could just see more drastic swings of improvement. So our defense has been fucking bad. If we went and made all the right moves, though, you could see a drastic improvement from the defense. And I think we're going to, because it's like you kept all the right guys. Whit Weeks, understand coming off the injury, is incredible. Harold Perkins, if he can get back to what he's capable of doing, is it fucking at his peak was arguably the best defensive player in the fucking country, but we don't even need him to be that. But Pyburn's a huge get. But then Gooden and Halsey, like people almost kind of forget because that one happened. They slid in through the back door right before the ship was right at the very end. If Halsey's as good as advertised, there you go. That's your safety that you need in the back end of the defense.
Yeah, 5 interceptions last year.
No, that Houston defense was underrated.
And then who's kind of flying under the radar is TaMarcus Cooley. I don't remember seeing him in the spring.
Yeah.
But last year, 2 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions, 6 passes defended. So he's another safety.
I'm pretty sure we had the number 1 graded transfer portal.
Yeah, number
transfer
1
class.
or number 2, depending on where you look.
Yeah. So I'm going to look where it says we're number 1. You pair that with Garrett Nussmeier coming back with this familiarity with the team and the offense and the system and all the potential in the world. He just has to minimize those mistakes where the implosions, the Kyle McCord fucking throw it to the other team 3 times in 1 quarter. We got to get those out of our system, and I think he will. I think he's probably going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft next year. There's a very high chance that he's sitting in fucking New York at the end of this season coming up to possibly win a Heisman Trophy. So I just don't see it. Like we just talked about the weapons. He didn't have weapons, and he threw for 4,000 yards. We couldn't run the ball. They knew we were going to pass, and he was still able to have success doing it. If you can get a more balanced offense, it's going to benefit him. It's not going to hurt his numbers. If anything, it's going to help his numbers, and it's going to help the offense put more points up on the board. I've gotten ahead of myself before. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself again. The bet's already been placed. I just don't see the glaring weakness. I think maybe I'm being a little I'm being a little hopeful that we're going to be able to run the ball better. But like you said, we addressed the interior of the offensive line. It ain't going to be fucking worse. And you just added a stud in the running back room with Harlem Berry. So, yeah, it's now or never. You open the season against Clemson, then you play LA Tech, Florida, Southeastern, at Ole Miss, South Carolina, at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, at Alabama. Then you close out the season, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and then you finish the year at Oklahoma. It's now or never. I really do think, and it's like, okay, shit, we got to start off against Clemson. Well, Georgia's got to start off against Ohio State. So, Alabama's going to start off against Florida State, but fuck them. I don't know. I think this is it. This is the year. It's got to be. I believed in Brian Kelly. I felt like it was a good hire when we got him. It was a necessary hire, a polar opposite from where we were, from who we had. And I'm not bashing Coach O. You'll never hear me bash Coach O a day in my fucking life. But it's a complete polar opposite. And I felt like it was necessary at the time. And I think we're going to see the breakthrough this year. So we'll keep it moving. It was obvious we were going to take a little bit more time on LSU. We go to Ole Miss. Head coach Lane Kiffin's back. 2024, they were 9-3, 5-3 in conference play. Their 2025 win total sits at 8.5. Heavily juiced to the over, minus 188, plus 152 if you like the under. It's felt like the rinse and repeat with Ole Miss for a few years now. Kiffin always has a very productive offense, but last year the defense was damn good. That was the difference. Quarterback Jackson Dart leaves for the NFL, 4,200-plus yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Running backs Henry Parrish and Ulysses Bentley are both gone. They both averaged 5-plus yards per carry and had 15 combined touchdowns. The big loss in the wide receiver room, Trey Harris, he goes to the NFL, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was in and out of the lineup with injuries. When healthy, he was one of the better wide receivers in the country. You also lose Jordan Watkins, 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. So you lose Dart, your top 2 running backs, and your top 2 wide receivers. You also lose tight end Caden Priestcorn, who was a fan favorite and very productive as well. Defensively, 5 of the top 7 tacklers are gone, including star defensive tackle Walter Nolan III and linebacker Chris Paul Jr. You lose 5 of your top 6 sack leaders. A combined 31 sacks are gone. I think the offense is going to be good again. I think it's a good system. We saw them seamlessly go from Matt Corral to Jackson Dart, and now Simmons is going to get the nod at quarterback. Defensively, I think I have to expect a step back. You lose a ton of production. I'm expecting a step back in that department. You start the season off against Georgia State, then you go on the road to take on Kentucky. Then you have Arkansas, Tulane, LSU, Washington State, all at home. Then you go on the road to play Georgia, on the road to play Oklahoma. Then you've got South Carolina, the Citadel, and Florida all at home, and you close out your season with the Egg Bowl on the road in Starkville. What are your thoughts on Ole Miss, and what are your thoughts on Simmons, who we did see step in place of Jackson Dart when he went down for one drive against Georgia, and he let him down. Did he cap off the scoring drive, or did they settle for a field goal?
I think they might have settled for a field goal.
Okay.
But it was their first scoring drive of the game.
Yeah, and he did not look bad.
He went 5 for 6 on that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss offensively is probably going to be as good as they were last year. I wasn't a big fan of Jackson Dart's play. I thought in the biggest moments he kind of, didn't do what you think a big-time first-round draft pick quarterback would do.
Yeah, no, he melted under the biggest moments. That's why it's funny that people just forget that.
So you look at what Ole Miss did in the transfer portal. They were like collecting wide receivers over here to try to replace all the guys they lost from a season ago. Harrison Wallace from Penn State, Deshaun Stribling from Oklahoma State, Deuce Alexander from Wake Forest, and Traylon Ray from West Virginia. So they're going to have some guys, they're going to have some options to go to here, and probably throughout fall camp they'll figure out which ones are the go-to guys. They lost their running back, huh?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, they
Logan
lost.
Diggs is now their running back. I don't really know what was up with him last year. He must have been injured.
Yeah, he's bounced around from Notre Dame. He was with us.
He was with Ole Miss last year.
Yeah, but he only got like 1 carry.
He didn't play a lot for whatever reason it was, because he played a lot at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
He was LSU's bell cow basically when he was healthy. And he's listed as a starter right now, so
I don't think he's the most productive.
no, he's not he's not a modern day running back.
He's
by
a
any
consistent.
means.
Yeah, he's a consistent, give you 3-4 yards.
Might break a tackle and get 5 or 6.
Yeah, but he's not a game breaker superstar running back. He's just a quality, like you said, he's a bell cow running back that you can give him a lot of carries. He'll keep the chains moving, but he's not a game breaker.
Yeah, defensively, expect him to take a step back, especially if Sage Ryan's starting at safety.
Oh yeah.
They also got, who was it, Deshaun Womack from LSU. So
They did, yeah.
2 transfers on defense from LSU. Womack's a decent player. Ryan, not so much.
Yeah.
Um,
Granted, we were playing him at corner, I think.
he played all over though. He
got
had his
recruited as
chances.
a safety.
He started out as a safety, and
Yeah.
then I think it was last year we played him at
He
corner.
might have been
a
the
little
number
bit.
1 safety in the recruiting class.
Yeah, he's nowhere near that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know who also probably was? Like Jamal Adams.
He was.
Grant Delpit.
He was good.
Like those people
Yeah.
lived up to their rating, pal. All right. 8.5 on the win total. I don't have on either way and there.
Yeah, it's not the toughest.
I would
the
expect
non-conference isn't very tough. You get to play the Citadel.
Georgia State.
Yeah, Georgia State, Tulane again. Wow.
You get Washington State.
Yeah.
No, the schedule's not tough. And that's why at least the numbers that I had here are heavily juiced to the over.
Yeah.
I think this is safe to say at this point. Like you said, you weren't super impressed with Jackson Dart, but offensively they were productive, just like they were productive with Matt Corral, who's a fry cook now. So I think the system is the system. So Austin Simmons is going to be probably solid. I think it's set up very well. I'm very critical of Lane Kiffin. I think he never shows up and has never done what he needed to do against the biggest matchups. I understand they beat Georgia and all of that. That's fucking great. The defense played fantastic. The offense did not. But it's like you never really accomplish shit, and then he never wants to like stand in the fire and take it. But then maybe it's because he does it to Brian Kelly, but he always hops on Twitter and chirps everybody else when shit goes bad for them, where it's like you haven't done really much of anything, pal. So I will give him credit, though. Offensively, I think the system's very good, and I think we've seen, because Corral was there for 3-4 years, then Jackson Dart was there for 3-4 years, and it's been pretty damn consistent the whole time, and now you have Simmons stepping in, taking the reins. I would imagine we're going to see more of that consistency on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, I think they take a step back. I think they have to. You know?
Yeah.
All righty, we'll keep it moving. Missouri, head coach Eli Drinkwitz, 2024, they went 9-3, 5-3 in conference play. Their win total for 2025 sits at 7.5, slightly juiced to the under, -132, +108 to the over. 2024 was a solid 10-win season for Mizzou. If you count the bowl win over Iowa, it was 10-win. They won 9 in the regular season. But going into 2025, they're going to have to make up for a lot of production loss. Brady Cook, quarterback, is gone. He was a starter for the last 3 years. Their top 2 rushers, Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll, they combined for 15 touchdowns. They're both gone. Their top 2 wide receivers, both to the NFL, Theo Weiss Jr. and then Luther Burden III. They bring in quarterback Bo Prabula from Penn State. We've seen him in spots here and there. He's been behind Aller the last 2 years. He was the dual threat guy that would come in running situations. He actually covered the number on like a week 1 bet for me 2 years ago and got the season kicked off the right way. It was a huge win that we didn't deserve, but that was the James Franklin special, scoring when he didn't need to. He was productive in a very small amount of opportunity. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, 10 rushing touchdowns, over 6 yards per carry. Clearly a dual threat guy. Defensively, they lose their leading tackler, Corey Flagg Jr., and their sack leader, Johnny Walker Jr., 9.5 sacks last year. They bring in, though, Josiah Trotter, linebacker from West Virginia, who I think has a lot of potential. And then they got Damon Wilson from Georgia, who was the top linebacker in the portal. Wide receiver Kevin Coleman Jr. Transfers in. I think he's in a good spot to have success early. The question's Bo Prabula, another quarterback question. What's he going to do as the starter? I think he has potential. Can he consistently do it with his arm like he's going to have to do in the SEC? That remains to be seen. Schedule-wise, you got Central Arkansas, Kansas, ULL, South Carolina, UMass, Alabama. I wrote down that those are all at home. I don't know if that's even possible to go fucking 6 straight games at home, but maybe so. Then you've got at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, versus Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and then you close out the season with back-to-back road games at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. Do you have high hopes for Mizzou? Do you have any expectations or any thoughts on them?
Yeah, you think back to Missouri last year. It's like 9-3. They finished a better record than LSU.
Yeah, Brady Cook, remember, he was bouncing in and out of the lineup. He
Yeah.
kept getting hurt. Luther Burden came in, expected to kind of be like the top wide receiver in college football, and he just wasn't. He checked out of games too many times, but Theo Weiss Jr. kind of picked up the slack. He was a very good wide receiver. That's why they're both in the NFL now. Burden was the burner, like ridiculous speed. If anybody played EA College Football 25, then you know that Luther Burden was the fastest guy in the game. So didn't live up to the expectations, but solid enough. The defense, solid enough. But it's like they never really felt like they were contending to do anything, you know?
No, yeah, just thinking back on them, it's like, okay. Didn't think they were 9-3 last year.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at this year, yeah, you lose your quarterback that's been there a while. You get a guy, though, that can run, and Eli Drinkwitz from previously at App State used quarterbacks to run a little bit over there as well. So,
no, I don't hate the transfer of Prbula. I really don't. I think spot-wise, it was a good spot for him. It made sense, like you just said, with Drinkwitz coming from App State. I think in terms of his ability, or like you stack up all the spots of where he could have success the earliest, I think Mizzou was a good call. It's just, how good is he? We haven't seen him a ton.
yeah.
But I think the potential's there. I wouldn't be shocked if it's like Mizzou's actually fucking doing solid and Prbula's playing well. I would not be blown away. It's just hard to hitch a wagon to a guy that has very little experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes for him. I don't have anything on them really. Do you have anything more there?
No.
Okay. Keep it moving. South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer, 2024, they went 9-3, 5-3 in conference play. 2025 win total 7.5. Juice to the under, -128, +104 if you like the over. 2024 was a good season for South Carolina, but it felt like it was the precursor of what could be going into this year. I think the fans are extremely excited about this season after seeing last year. Lenore Sellers is arguably the most athletic quarterback in America. The question is, can he take the next step as a pocket passer? When South Carolina played tougher competition, they lost, but Bama and LSU were both down to the wire, and you could argue they could have won both of those games, or maybe should have won both of those games. Offensively, Rocket Sanders is gone, 881 yards and 11 touchdowns. You bring in Rashul Faison to take his place from Utah State. Last year he had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Nick Harbor's back at wide receiver, a big body guy, 6'5", track speed. Everybody's very excited about what he can do. Defensively, you lose the SEC Defensive Player of the Year in Kyle Kennard. So that's going to be tough, but Dylan Stewart is back. I think the defensive line and just the defense in general is going to be a solid unit. Again, they lost the safety. I'm blanking on his name, but he was a very good safety. He got drafted early. Schedule-wise, you open up on a neutral against Virginia Tech. Then you have South Carolina State. You play Vanderbilt, on the road against Mizzou. Kentucky, on the road against LSU. Oklahoma, Alabama, both at home. On the road against Ole Miss and A&M. And then you close out your season at home against Coastal Carolina and Clemson. Are you buying the hype on Lenore Sellers? Are you buying the hype on South Carolina? Juice to the under. Looking like expecting seven wins or less. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I was, you watch Sellers from last year, and at times, he looked really good against LSU, which he got banged up, and then
it was just with his
at
legs,
the
though,
end of the
we can't
game
stop a damn quarterback that can run.
against Clemson, man, that frickin'
That last play to win the game was
that
heroic.
was incredible.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know about the down-to-down consistency for him. I don't know. I think South Carolina is probably a team that can beat anyone here, but I don't know if they are a team that wins all the games that they're supposed to.
Yeah, I agree. I think, on any given day, they can give you a game and possibly beat you. But are they going to consistently run through the teams that they're supposed to and be a contender against all the top teams? I don't think so. Meaning, like, they got to play us at Death Valley You got to play on the road against Mizzou, but you got to play Alabama. You get them at home, sure, but then Clemson too. So if you're looking at a 7-5 win total, you say either 7 wins or 8 wins. If it's 7, you have what, 5 that you can work with. You got a loss against LSU. You got a loss against Bama. Probably a loss on the road against Ole Miss. That's 3. Oklahoma's possibly a scrappy team this year. Clemson could be your 4th loss, and then you're looking at one more loss if
Texas A&M.
Yeah, Texas A&M on the road, tough, extremely tough environment to play in. Yeah, it's kind of like
So yeah, they're
you can't get tripped up on any of those games, and then you maybe it's like, can they squeak out one against LSU, Ole Miss, Bama, or Clemson?
yeah.
So
They're
if
like,
not, you got to run a clean sheet elsewhere.
It's a similar type of schedule to what LSU has to play, you know, except South Carolina has to play Clemson every year.
Yeah.
But you kind of look
it
at
really
it,
is.
Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, these are top teams in the SEC this year.
Yep.
And then pair that along with Clemson. So
Yeah.
that's probably why that their win total's so low, you know, and it's kind of the same thing you're seeing with LSU where
It's lower than the rest. It's lower than the Bamas and the Georgias
Yeah.
and the Texases.
it's just the schedule
Yeah.
and then that non-conference game to start the season when you have to play a team that's projected to be in the top 5 like Clemson. It's just going to knock it down a point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you'll see that if you win that Clemson game, you're going to see it tick up a game
Yeah.
on what's expected. But that's just it's a toss-up game. It's a 2.5-point spread out the gates. So, speaking of Texas A&M, we'll keep it moving. As far as South Carolina, I'm very interested to see if Lenore Sellers can take that next step. When he runs the football, like we were just talking about, that last sequence against Clemson was incredible. I think I was on South Carolina in that game.
Yeah, we both were.
And that was like, okay, just put the team on his fucking back. He really did. And he ran all over LSU. It's not a question mark with his legs. It's can he do it with his arm? And I think he's going to have more weapons to get the ball to. But losing Rocket Sanders at running back is nothing to kind of – you got to take that serious. But I think Faison could be a solid replacement. But we'll see. It remains to be seen. I look forward to finding out. Texas A&M. Head coach Mike Elko back for his second year. 2024, they went 8-4, 5-3 in conference play. Their 2025 win total is 7.5. Juice to the over, -154, +126 if you like the under. I would call year one under Mike Elko a success. They started with Wegman at quarterback, then they went to Marcel Reed, then they went back to Wegman, and then they settled back on Marcel Reed. Reed showed potential in some spots, but then he showed his youth in others. He had wins against Florida on the road, Arkansas, LSU. Didn't do shit with his arms. He was 2 for 2 passing. He did it all with his legs. And then Auburn was a 4 overtime loss on the road, I believe. A&M clearly believes in him because they put a big emphasis on wide receiver in the portal. They went and got Casey Concepcion from NC State, and then they got Mario Craver from Mississippi State. Both are going to be starting at wideout. Defensively, they bring back 8 of their top 10 leading tacklers. They obviously lose Nick Scorton and Shamar Turner to the NFL, 2 guys on the defensive line. Scorton was the big transfer. I think it was from Purdue. Maybe it doesn't matter. Both to the NFL. They were their 2 best D linemen, but they bring in TJ Searcy and Tyler Onyedim to take their place. Outside of that, though, everybody else is pretty much back. It's the same defensive unit. It's going to be another quality Texas A&M defense with another tough environment to go play in. If Marcel Reed can take a step forward, this A&M team is going to be a tough team to face week in and week out. You start the season against UTSA, then Utah State, then you get the rematch at Notre Dame, Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida, all 3 at home. Then you have 3 straight road games, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri. Then you've got South Carolina and Samford at home, and you finish the season on the road against Texas. We'll start with Marcel Reed because it was a tough ending to the season. It was they did not finish the season strong. What are your thoughts on Reed? Do you think he has legitimate potential, and do you think he shows it this year?
I think he can run.
Well, we know he can run. He ran all the fuck over us.
Yeah, I have questions, and like even after that LSU game, it's like okay.
It seemed like people
We're now
figured
looking,
him out.
Yeah, it's like okay. After that LSU game, we're looking to fade A&M. the weeks after that.
Yeah, and I think and we had success with that.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I have questions about we know he's a talented athlete and he has a good arm, but I have questions about the decision making at times.
Yeah.
I think A&M's best bet is to hand it to Moss a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean they're going to have guys on offense too, especially going and get Concepcion. He was one of the most sought after wide receivers in the portal. And yeah, what's it, Le'Veon Moss?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a very good running back. So if Reed can just take that little step forward, though, I think they can be competitive. It'll be another team like a South Carolina. Like, you can't bat an eye at – you can't take A&M for granted, especially if you got to go on the road and play them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think A&M – look, they were 55th last year in yards per play allowed, and the defense was kind of you compare that to LSU.
Yeah.
LSU was 80th in yards per play allowed last year. So – a good bit better than LSU's defense, and you can probably expect A&M to take a step up again here this season.
Yeah.
Bringing back some of their guys. I don't know. It kind of rests on the quarterback play. You kind of look at, these teams in the SEC, and then, look, A&M has to go play on the road against Notre Dame. It's just some good defenses they're going to have to play.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's not yeah, I agree. It's same thing, another quarterback question. Does he take the step forward? Whoever's quarterbacks do it, you're going to see them excel. And it's just there's so many different quarterbacks with questions. It feels like this year more than any before that I can remember, and at least since we started this show, where you just don't have those guys. We've just reached that point where it's the turnover and everybody's starting with a new guy to establish. Like I said with Ole Miss, you had Jackson Dart there for the last 3-4 years. Before him, you had Matt Corral there for 3-4 years. So now we've reached that point where it just so happens all these guys are starting with somebody new at the same time. So, all righty, keep it moving. Florida. Head coach Billy Napier, 2024, 7-5. 4-4 in conference play. 2025 win total sits at 7.5. Minus 152 to the under. Minus 130 to the under. Plus 124 to the over. That might be a little less now. Billy Napier's time in Gainesville has not lived up to expectations. I think that's safe to say. Defensively, they lose their top 3 leading tacklers. The third one being Jack Pyburn to LSU. Thank you. Schedule-wise, you start off with Long Island University. I'm going to go ahead and pencil that one in as a win. Then you've got South Florida at LSU, at Miami, versus Texas at A&M. A bit of a gauntlet there on a four-week stretch. Mississippi State, Georgia, both at home, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State at home to close out your season. It's another quarterback question with Lagway, because when you look at how Lagway's season finished, another guy with a lot of potential, but I think, what did he have? 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and in the red zone, in my opinion, left a lot to be desired, at least down the stretch. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Florida? Do you think it feels like the seat's been hot for Billy Napier for the last couple years?
Yeah, and he kind of
keeps buying himself time, it feels like.
Yeah, it was like they kind of finished decent.
Yeah.
And
like it felt like the question got answered.
They almost beat Georgia, and Lagway got injured in that game. He only threw 6 passes in that game, and then he came back the next week, and Florida beat LSU.
Yeah.
So the numbers aren't really great, A game against Tennessee, he had 98 passing yards. Against UCF, he had 50 passing yards. I don't understand how you can only have that many passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, you could get that on one drive with one. You can throw a 30-yard
and they're
pass.
They're putting this guy in the same category as Nussmeier?
No. He's just got the measurables. Like, he's got.
He was a true freshman last year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
He was the big get. He was like part of the reason why they let Napier stick around.
Uh-huh.
Because they're like, well, if he fucking goes, we might lose this guy. So we'll tolerate him one more time. Yeah, he was the big get for sure.
Yeah, he's super talented and he's huge. He's 6'3", 241. So, definitely a guy that, can take on linebackers with that size.
Yeah.
You kind of, what's their schedule look like?
You've got, oh yeah, I just said it. Long Island, South Florida. Yeah. 4-week stretch of at LSU, at Miami, Texas, at Texas A&M. Then you got to play Georgia. You got to play Ole Miss. You got to play Tennessee, at Kentucky. It's not the easiest schedule.
Yeah, early in the year, having to go to LSU, who LSU at that time could be a team possibly with their back against the wall, depending on how week 1 goes against Clemson.
Yeah.
Then you go back-to-back road games. The next one's on the road against Miami, which Miami isn't. They don't have much of a home field advantage because I don't know why they don't really get a big crowd in that stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of quarterbacks in this conference that have hype, and who's deserving of it?
Yeah.
Because probably Nussmeier's deserving of some hype, and Sellers is. You look at two guys that had, basically at least one full season starting. And then other than that, it's kind of question marks everywhere else. And Florida is another team where, I remember, LSU lost to Florida State and everyone. And I think Florida might have beat Miami that year. Or they beat somebody. They had a good
last year?
The first year of Brian Kelly at LSU,
a couple years back.
And why am I blanking on his name? Florida's coach, Billy Napier.
Yeah.
Remember, everybody wanted Billy Napier.
Yeah, we
instead
didn't.
of Brian Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't. But there's a couple LSU beat writers that have died on that hill, where they still try to champion this dude like he was the right move, and we should have went with him instead of Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I remember it was their first games.
Yeah.
Florida played a pretty big school, and LSU, obviously, we played Florida State.
Yep.
And LSU lost, and Florida won.
Yeah. All right, we'll try to pick up the pace here a little bit. We're running almost an hour and a half. Got a couple teams left. We're down the stretch. Arkansas. Head coach Sam Pittman, 2024, they went 6-6, 3-5 in conference play. Over under 5.5, juice to the under, -122. Taylon Green is back at quarterback. They bring in a couple new wide receivers. Honestly, it's almost an entirely new wide receiver room. Monty Harrison's the only returning guy. Blake Omega or Omega Blake, and then Ishmael Cisse. Antonio Jordan's a true freshman. Defensively, there's a lot of similar guys back. I don't have high hopes for this Arkansas team. I don't have much on them. I spent more time on the teams that I think are going to do anything. Sorry, Josh. What are your thoughts on Arkansas? Anything noteworthy?
Yeah, I think Arkansas last year probably overperformed a little bit. Finished 6-6.
One of the bigger losses is Armstrong, the wide receiver.
Yeah,
losing him. He was a damn good wide receiver, and he was clearly Taylon Green's favorite target. So he's gonna have to find a new one. But yeah, sorry to cut you off.
Who did they beat in the bowl game?
It's a good question that I'm not gonna be able to answer for you.
Hang on, I'm about to pull it.
But yeah, I don't have much.
Oh, they beat Texas Tech.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That one hurt too. I was on Tech.
But yeah, I think I don't know. I'm trying to pull up Arkansas' schedule here. I just remember them as a team, they kind of got away with some, and then it felt like they weren't deserving of being 6-6.
Yeah.
And then you look at the schedule now. At Ole Miss, they have to play Notre Dame. At Tennessee, Texas A&M, at LSU, at Texas. How many games is that? At least 5.
Yeah.
That I think are going to be losses.
Yeah, I mean, if you go under, you need 5 and 7. So you need 7 losses if you like the under.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little tricky here. But I definitely think, maybe Missouri's better than them this year.
I mean, if not, it's close.
Yeah.
If not, it's very close. So
yeah, you got to kind of really dissect this schedule.
Yeah.
Their non-conference isn't tough.
All right, we'll keep it moving. Another team I don't have a ton on, Vanderbilt. Head coach Clark Lee is back. 2024, they went 6-6, 3-5 in conference play. Over/under for 25 is 4.5. Juice to the over pretty heavily, -164, +136 if you like the under. The big talk with with Vanderbilt was that they beat Alabama. Diego Pavia, everybody got a nice hearty dose of Diego Pavia in the SEC. We were very familiar with him. Faded him in the wrong spots. But he's back. He got some exemption, and he's able to play again. And Eli Stowers is also back. But not very high expectations for this team. So only sitting at 4.5 wins. I understand, like I said, juice to the over. What are your thoughts on Vanderbilt, and do we see more of the Pavia magic?
Yeah, I think so.
You do?
This guy, I'm done thinking he's not going to be any good, okay?
No, he's good.
He's not the best, but he'll do some things, especially if your team isn't that good.
Yeah. Honestly, the reason why the win totals as low as it is the schedule's tough. So you got to go on the road, Virginia Tech. Understand this Virginia Tech doesn't have a ton of high expectations, but they played last year. You got to go on the road to Tech, on the road to South Carolina, on the road to Alabama. You got to play LSU, Missouri, on the road to Texas, and then you close out the season on the road with Tennessee, and you got Auburn and Kentucky before that. So a pretty tough schedule, a pretty tough road schedule specifically,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why the number's a little low. But if you had to get to 5 wins, you got a win over Charleston Southern, very possibly a win over Virginia Tech, win over Georgia State probably, Utah State probably. That's 4. But you're probably going to lose to South Carolina, or they're more than likely going to lose to South Carolina. Doubt you upset Alabama again. Definitely going to lose to LSU, or else you're never going to hear from me again. You got to get one more win in there between Mizzou, Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They might be able to do it. Actually, they probably would be able to do it. That's why it's juice to the over. But I don't know they get 6. I don't know that they go to the bowl.
Yeah, they went 6-6 last year.
Yeah, but that was with a big upset over Bama. They were inconsistent.
Who else did they upset?
There was another one. I can't remember it specifically, but actually I can pull it up for you. Hold on. Right here. They got Auburn. They beat Kentucky. They gave Texas a very close game. That's what it was, 27-24.
It was close, but it wasn't. I remember Texas was up 10. They backdoored that to a 3-point game.
But they were in it though for a minute though. Like it was
Not
like really. It was like, oh, you got to fucking turn it on. I thought it was. Let's see. At one point,
I remember watching.
It was 24-17. They scored a touchdown to make it 24-17. Texas punted, then Vanderbilt punted, then Texas punted, then Vanderbilt went turnover on downs on their own 35. So they had multiple opportunities with the ball, and then they held Texas to a field goal, and then Vanderbilt scored a touchdown with 46 seconds left. But so they were down a touchdown for 6 minutes left to go in the third. And then Texas didn't score again until 1:57 left in the fourth. So they were within one score for a quarter and a half almost, like late in the game. They just couldn't do it. Texas defense just kept getting the stops. Like I remember going like, okay, I got to at least keep an eye on this now. Like they're in striking distance. But But yeah, I mean, just sit back and enjoy another year of Diego Pavia. Be thankful that they gave him the exemption and we get to watch it again because it's gonna be electric in some form or fashion. It always is. So, do you have anything more on Vanderbilt?
No.
Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze, 2024, they went 5-7. They're 2-6 in conference play. Over under for 25 sits at 7.5. Juice to the over -162, plus 132 to the under. Jackson Arnold comes in at quarterback, and I don't know how you could possibly have high hopes or high expectations for Jackson Arnold, but they're saying that they think that this team is going to get to 8 wins. The biggest acquisition was Eric Singleton Jr. in the transfer portal from Georgia Tech. He was the number 1 wide receiver in the portal. What are your thoughts with Auburn? I mean, 8 wins. I'm pulling up the schedule right now. Seems possibly. I just hate Jackson Arnold.
He's better than Peyton Thorne.
Yeah, is he?
Yes.
You sure?
Absolutely. Peyton Thorne's the worst I've ever seen.
You positive?
Yeah.
There was a couple times where I felt like Peyton Thorne gave a team a scare.
Dude, he sucked.
What did Jackson Arnold do, though, that leads you to believe?
I mean, shit, he had 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Pull up damn Thorne stats.
I think he had like 20 and single-digit interceptions.
Ain't no way.
I'm pretty sure.
He definitely completed under 50,
I got it right
under
here.
60% of his passes.
Wrong. 62.8, nearly 63, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Yeah, that's not good.
Well, that's better than every metric that you just said.
That's not better than 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Well, you said he was under 60%, and then I said I think he had single-digit interceptions.
Oh,
You're
by
like, no
one.
way. What do you mean? That's not look, he wasn't good, but there were times where it was like they were scrappy.
I literally
times.
said I won't bet on them because of this player.
Yeah, I mean, what? They should have beat Alabama that one year, and it was the miracle throw from Milroe in Saban's last year. They beat A&M in 4 overtimes. No, they weren't good. Don't get me wrong. But the point that I'm making is I'm not like saying Jackson Arnold is head and shoulders better than him. Jackson Arnold was fucking terrible. So much so that they went to Michael Hawkins.
Yeah, which was a mistake. They should have never benched Arnold because they had to go back to him.
And it still didn't go well, though.
He played much better when they went back to him.
I mean, better, but yeah, I don't know. All right, so you think he's going to do well at Auburn?
I'm saying he'll be better than Peyton Thorne.
So you think he's got 20-plus touchdowns, single-digit interceptions?
Yeah, he'll have a better passer rating than Peyton Thorne.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah, in his defense, I don't think Oklahoma had much to write home about in terms of weapons because they kept dealing with the injuries and all of that. Eric Singleton Jr., although didn't have the craziest of numbers at Georgia Tech, he was the most sought-after wide receiver for a reason. But in 2025, you open the season against Baylor. You got to play Ball State, South Alabama. Then you go on the road to Oklahoma, on the road to Texas A&M, Georgia, Mizzou, on the road to Arkansas, Kentucky, on the road to Vanderbilt, Mercer, and you close the season out in the Iron Bowl with Alabama. So if you need to get to 8 wins, you're going to have 4 losses. Your losses are going to be Alabama, Georgia, probably A&M on the road. If you had to give yourself 4, that would be one of them. And then Baylor to open the season. So, yeah, I mean, outside of that, you got Ball State, like the non-con Mercer. Very easy non-con, other than having to open with Baylor. And then Arkansas, Mizzou, Kentucky. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, the backups, I remember him too from Stanford. He had 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions last year. Ashton Daniels.
Yeah, he like in very small spurts showed potential.
Yeah.
Like he would every now and then, but then but it was just very, very inconsistent. And then he would like do the complete polar opposite and implode. It was like a week by week basis. Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I don't think Jackson Arnold's good at all, but we'll see. It's not the hardest of schedules, other than like, yeah, it's very polar opposites of like, yeah, you play great teams and then you play shit teams. So it's not like scattered all throughout where it's like a consistent level of like they're getting bottom of the barrel of the SEC. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes for them. Speaking of Oklahoma, Sooners, Brent Venables is back. Last year they went 6-6, 2-6 in conference play. Their win total for 2025 sits at 6.5, juiced to the over -158, plus 128 to the under. I love the moves that the Sooners have made in the portal to address the offense, at least on paper. I love the potential that this offense has with John Mateer coming in. I think he's one of the more intriguing quarterbacks in the country of will he be able to do what he did prior? Will he be able to do that in the SEC? But then you bring in Jaden Ott, who I've been talking about for a long time. I think he's one of the better running backs in the country when healthy. Comes over from Cal. You would imagine the defense is going to be a Brent Venables defense, but offensively they were so bad last year. I don't know what to expect with this Oklahoma team, but I'm very intrigued to see how it plays out. Do you have what are your thoughts? Do you think Mateer has success?
Yeah, probably a little success. I mean,
do you think he has a better year than Jackson Arnold?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so.
I mean, you want to put a bet on that? I don't know how we. I don't know.
I think what's likely to happen is that Venables and Hugh Freeze both get fired.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine that this is do or die for Brent Venables. It just has not gone according to plan.
No, and it was a tough, kind of a tough school to take over with the era that we're in now in the transfer portal. Well,
it's also a weird situation where like Bob Stoops still has an office and very much like a ton of influence in the program, and they say like he's always kind of like right there breathing down your neck. So, and he's not the coach anymore. Like, I don't think is he the athletic director? I don't think he's, like, technically affiliated, like, by employment,
No.
But he has his office still there. Like, they love Bob Stoops. That guy's, like, it's like what Alabama's inevitably going to do with Nick Saban.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. I think Oklahoma's going to be exciting.
They're probably going to be better than last year.
Which isn't saying much, but yeah, I mean, you lose Stutzman, came to the Saints, very good linebacker. But it's not so much the defense that you worry about. It's just can they put up points on the board offensively. But I love Jaden Ott. I think that's a great get. And then Mateer with his ability to run, they could do a wacky offense if they really wanted to, if Mateer's not able to throw the ball very well. But he was electric too. He was very fun to watch. At the very least, you're excited going into this season of the possibility of what could be as an Oklahoma fan. Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops, 2024, they were 4-8, 1-7 in conference play. Their win total is 4.5 going into 25, -106 to the over, -114 to the other under, which means nobody fucking knows how they're going to really do. It was a horrible 2024 season. I would imagine this has got to be the end of the line for Mark Stoops, who it feels like has had a lifetime contract. Zach Calzada comes in at quarterback. They did bring in Dante Dowdle, running back from Nebraska, and he's been with Oregon as well. I don't have much on this Kentucky team. I don't think they're going to be a very good team. I don't think Calzada's a great quarterback. Do you have anything noteworthy? Or I really think this is probably the end of the line for Mark Stoops. I think he's made Kentucky relevant. He's brought them into – it's a basketball school first and foremost. They're in the SEC as a basketball school. He made the football program relevant. I think he's reached the peak of what he's capable of doing there in terms of recruiting and the success that he can bring to that program. They're never going to be a perennial powerhouse in football. It's just not going to happen. They allocate too many resources to the basketball program for obvious reasons. I think we see Mark Stoops coaching either not at all or elsewhere next season.
Yeah. Just I don't know what you expect for Kentucky. Like, well, a lot of times these teams, Kentucky, unlike, LSU and Alabama, they aren't expecting to compete for the national championship every year.
No, but they liked their bowl appearances, and they were consistent. They were a mainstay in bowl games for a little while there, and now they're not. Now they had a terrible year, 1-7 in SEC play. Remember, like they were one of those teams that was like every year it felt like they were giving Georgia a run, and they were a scrappy team that could upset you on any day. They had Levis, they've had solid quarterbacks through the years, solid enough. But they're reaching that point to where it's like the steam, it's dying out. The Mark Stoops effect is dying out. It's kind of run its course, and now I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think he's not getting the recruits like he once was, and it's just, it seems like it's run its course. If your win total's 4.5, you're not expected to make a bowl game again. So it's one of those, like, yeah, what do you expect? You don't have championship aspirations. They know that going in. But now if it's like we're not even like we got to really overachieve to even make a bowl game, then it's like we might as well move on and make a change. It's time to go in a different direction at that point, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah. I mean, did they miss a bowl game twice in a row?
Well, they went 4-8 last year. The year before that, probably not. They would have had Levis then, right?
Yeah.
So probably not.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like some of these schools, dude, it's like, especially with the way it's changing, what you're going to see is the better teams are going to get better, and then the mediocre teams are going to get worse because
they're going to lose all their players.
Wide receiver, I mean, Kentucky lost both of their best wide receivers to the transfer portal.
Yep.
They don't have a good quarterback.
No.
They'll be lucky to win any games.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to beat the teams, that are worse than them, like they're in their non-conference. But in the SEC, you're probably looking at 1-7 again. You'll be lucky to.
Yeah.
What? The one win was against Ole Miss, an upset?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a game they weren't even supposed to win.
No, I know. Yeah, I wouldn't have high hopes if I was a Kentucky fan. Sorry to tell you. But it is what it is. Like I said, that's my hot take, I guess, is I think the Mark Stoops era it's coming to an end. Mississippi State, final team. We've reached the end of the line, everybody. I know we've been going on nearly an hour 45. We're going to speed through this one. We'll give you our best bet, and we'll get on our way. Jeff Lebby's the head coach, 2-10 last year, 0-8 in conference play. The win total going into 25 is 3.5. Juice to the over, -144, +118 to the under. It was a tough start year one for Jeff Lebby. But I swear to God, I felt like this team was scrappy in spots. LSU said, give us your fucking quarterback. The only person on the roster had any potential. Van Buren's now a Tiger. Entirely new wide receiver room for the offensive-minded Jeff Lebby and quarterback Blake Shapen. I don't know how you have high hopes for this Mississippi State team, if I'm being honest with you. What are your thoughts, if you have any? I really don't have much. I don't think they're going to be that good. I don't think Lebby's a bad coach. It was an interesting move. I get it. You want to get an SEC job. I don't know how you get people to want to go play for Mississippi State. I don't think they're going to be good this year.
Yeah, I just don't know what type of, funding they have here to go get players to be competitive in this conference.
I would imagine they got something. I get it. It's Mississippi. The goddamn.
They can't have much because they aren't able to keep their best players.
Yeah.
Their quarterback left to become a backup.
Look, they're the doormat of the fucking country over there. I get it. And we're right next to them, so we smell
Everyone in
them from
Mississippi's
here.
giving their money to Ole Miss, who had the third-ranked transfer portal class.
I bet you they got somebody, though, that was an alum with a shitload of money. We got Gordon McKernan. They got somebody. Yeah, I don't know. Exactly. I mean, yeah, they're not going to be good. They're just not. And we basically leave it there. Maybe they upset Ole Miss in the fucking Egg Bowl because that's their Super Bowl. Like that, they could be scrappy. There were times too with Van Buren last year they were scrappy. Like I think that Lebby's a good offensive mind. He can put points up on the board. It's just going to be tough with the personnel that you have. All right, we've reached that point. This is going to be our best bet. Futures bet for the SEC conference for 2025. I'll let you go first. Which way are you going?
I might go 2.
Okay.
But I'm going to go The first one's going to be a 10-1 shot here with LSU to win the conference.
Okay.
Kind of, we look at the win total, and yeah, it's enticing only being at 8.5, and obviously they're going to have to win more than 8.5 games to win the conference, but to win the SEC pays 10-1, so we're going to go there. We talked in detail about LSU. I think the biggest thing is obviously the offense, but even bigger than that is that the defense is actually going to be formidable this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it in the spring. And all the guys weren't even there yet, but the secondary is not only going to be good, it's going to be deep as well. We saw P.J. Woodland making plays, a player that's been on the team for a couple seasons. So that's basically where we're going with that. I think you look at it top to bottom, LSU has the, I guess, most structure around the quarterback position in the SEC, other than probably Texas with Arch Manning, who is also going to be a first-round draft pick. But outside of LSU and Texas, you look at these teams, and it's like, okay, questions at quarterback, questions at quarterback, questions at quarterback. So 10-1 without a question at quarterback, I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just got one. I'm going to go Florida under 7.5 wins, minus 130. In large part, this is just because of the schedule. Not just because. I don't think Napier's the best coach. I think we've seen that. And I'm not the firmest of believers in Lagway. I don't think he showed you a ton. I get he was a true freshman. Now he's coming back with a little bit more experience. And it was Graham Mertz first, and then it was Lagway. And I don't really care. You got to go at LSU, at Miami, versus Texas, at Texas A&M on a 4-week stretch. Even if you win one of those, please don't be fucking LSU. If you're going to win one, you probably win at Miami in a little revenge spot there after what happened to start the year. But you got 3 losses. We got to get to 2 more. You've got Georgia. You've got Ole Miss on the road. You've got Tennessee and Florida State to end the season. I think Florida State's going to be much better than last year. That's not saying much from how bad they were. This is more of a reflection on, I think it's a tough schedule. I really do. And so 7-5, what? Like I said, I got to find 5 losses there. LSU, Texas, A&M on the road is 3. Georgia is 4. We'll go Ole Miss is 5. But if not Ole Miss, you got Florida State, you got Tennessee, you got at Miami. It's tough spots. It's a tough schedule. I'm going under 7.5 minus 130.
Okay, and also want to go Arkansas under 5.5 wins. Minus 118, I think, is what it's sitting at here. We kind of briefly touched on it. They have to play at Ole Miss. They have to play Notre Dame, Tennessee, Texas A&M, LSU, and Texas. We're counting all of those losses, and that doesn't even mention Auburn and Missouri, which right now I'm probably projecting Auburn and Missouri to be better than Arkansas right now. So, I think Arkansas finishes 5-7 at best this year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. All righty, there you go. That is our best bets for a futures bet for the SEC Conference. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Do you have anything to say before we go?
Nope.
Episode 226 is in the books. So this is the completion of our Power Conference breakdown. Again, like I told you, this is very beneficial for us. It helps you brush up on all the personnel going into the season. We'll talk about if we want to do a group of 5 conference breakdown, maybe compile it all into one, and then we're going to turn our attention in the NFL as well. So we're not done. Still work to be done throughout the summer months, but that does wrap up episode 226. Thank you all. Y'all have a good night. Who dat?
The house always wins. Play long enough, you never change the stakes. The house takes you. Unless, when that perfect hand comes along, you bet big, and then you take the house. I've been practicing this. A little bit. Did I rush it? Felt like I rushed.
That was good. I liked it.